Hello once again and welcome to Macy Church Online. We hope that you and your family and those round about you are staying safe and staying well and managing to cope with the restrictions that we all find ourselves in at the moment. So once again, with our online videos, we hope to bring you a bit of what Macy Church is with a game, a challenge today and a Bible story as well. So bear with us and we'll see how we get on this time around. So one of the things that I've been really thankful about over the last few weeks is that the weather has been really nice, hasn't it? Most days have been dry, some days have been really sunny and even quite warm for this time of year. So I've managed to spend quite a lot of time out in the garden doing all sorts of jobs. So I've managed to tidy up some trees that needed trimmed. I've dug up lots of weeds, I've swept lots of paths, and I've even planted some vegetables. And I think actually at the moment my garden possibly looks better than it's ever done in the past. The other day I was out in the garden and it was time to finish up and I started to tidy up. And it took ages to tidy up. I couldn't believe how long it took to put everything back into my shed. I couldn't believe how many different tools and different bits of equipment I seemed to have used during that day. So anyway, here is a little silly video of some of the things that I used that day. I wonder how many of these you might have in your garden shed or in your garage if you've got a garden. Isn't that amazing how many different bits of equipment that we seem to need to look after something simple like a garden? Now later in our story today we're going to find out about a guy who was offered lots of equipment to do a job, but he turned it all down. But before we do that, then this week I have a challenge for you. They are puzzle challenges, so you can try them yourself or you can try them on your friends and family. See you go, and hopefully the video that follows explains how they work, and the idea would be that once it starts to play it'll say at some point stop, and at that point please stop the video and try and do the puzzle, and then once you've got it right or if you get stuck then play again and it'll go on to the next one. Okay, let's see you get on with these. Okay, this week I have got some puzzles for you to try. Now normally these puzzles are played with matchsticks, but if you don't have any matchsticks then it would work just as well with some cocktail sticks or some straws or some pens. Doesn't really matter as long as the things you're using are roughly the same size. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to lay the puzzle out. I'm going to tell you what you have to do, what the rules are, and then what to do is stop the video while you try to work it out and then start the video again when either you've worked it out and you want to check your answer or you give up. Let's see how you get on with these. Okay, here's our first puzzle. As you can see, we've got a shape that's got 4 equal sized boxes. What I want you to do is to move 3 pens so that it turns into a shape that's only got 3 equal sized boxes. Okay, here's the solution for this one. There you go, 3 moves and we've got 3 equal size boxes. How did you go on with that one? Okay, here's our next puzzle. I've got the pens laid out this time in a shape that looks a bit like a fish. If I put a coin down here, it looks like a fish swimming towards the left. So what I want you to do this time is to move 3 pens and see if you can get the fish to change direction so that it's swimming towards the right. Okay, here's the answer for this one. How did you get on? There you go, our fish shape is now swimming towards the right. Okay, we've got a sum this time. At the moment, the sum reads 7 minus 4 equals 5. That's definitely not right. What you need to do here is move just 1 pen to make the sum correct. There you go, 1 pen moved, 1 plus 4 equals 5. Okay, here's our next puzzle. This time I've got the pens laid out in a shape that makes 3 triangles. What I want you to do this time is to try and move 3 pens so you end up with a new shape where you can see 4 triangles. Okay, here's one of the answers for this one. There you go. 1, 2, 3, 4 triangles. Okay, I've got one last challenge for you. I've got the pens laid out here and it says 503. The challenge this time is to move 2 pens and try and make the number as big as you can. Okay, this time though, I'm not going to give you the answer, but if you'd like to have a go, tell us what you think. Maybe you can send us a message on our Facebook page and see if you can work out what you think the biggest number is that you can make by moving just 2 pens. Okay, I hope that was enjoyable and that you managed to get all of these right. I'm sure you did. And I'll be really interested to see if we get any response on the last one, on what people might think is the biggest number that they can make. And I'll be interested to follow that on Facebook perhaps and see what different answers we get. So we're going to move on now and do a craft activity, which is really simple, that turns into a game that you can play at home. In our story today, we're going to find out a guy who was really good at hitting a target. So here's a little game that you can maybe make at home, play it in the house or in the garden to see how good you are at hitting a target. So first of all, you need something to use as a target. So I've found some old tins here, some juice cups, things like that. If you like to be competitive and keep a score, then what to do is write a number down on a piece of paper, and then you can stick your number onto each of these targets so that as you play the game, you can keep a score. Okay, and last of all, you need something to throw at your targets. So, simplest thing is just to use something like these. Okay, so there's some bottle caps here, some scrunched up paper, some scrunched up tin foil. These are the things that you can use to throw at your targets. So once you get everything set up, take it in turns to throw the things at the target and see who can get the best score. Okay, here's one set up. Let's see how we get on. Okay, I wonder if you have maybe guessed what our story is about today. I've given you a couple of clues. I've said that it is about somebody who was offered some equipment but turned it down, and somebody who was a good shot. So if you haven't guessed it already, our story today is about a guy called David. Now, if this story was a film or television, then it would come with a warning. It would come with one of these warnings that said, warning, contains violence, contains threats. And I have to tell you before the story starts that not everybody in the story today makes it alive. But anyway, here we go. The story is based in the Old Testament part of the Bible, and it tells the story of a guy called David. Now, David was part of a tribe called the Israelites, and the Israelites had an enemy at the time, and they were called the Philistines. And in our story, we find that the Philistines and the Israelites are about to go into battle. Now, in these days, there was no guns, there was no airplanes, there was no tanks and things. Battles would be gruesome, really violent things where men would fight hand to hand with swords and spears, and they really would be really gory things. So we find ourselves at the start of the story with these two armies facing off against each other. So this is what it says in 1 Samuel chapter 17, which is where our story starts today. So this is an introduction, and it introduces one of the other main characters in our story. It also mentions a guy called Saul. Now, Saul was the king of the Israelites. So this is what the story says. This is from 1 Samuel chapter 17. And it says, the Philistines lined up on one hill and the Israelites on another, with a valley between them. A man named Goliath from the city of Gath came out from the Philistine camp to challenge the Israelites. He was nearly 3 meters tall, and he wore bronze armour that weighed about 57 kilograms and a bronze helmet. His legs were also protected by bronze armour, and he carried a bronze javelin slung over his shoulder. His spear was thick, and its iron head weighed about 7 kilograms. A soldier walked in front of him carrying his shield. Goliath stood and shouted at the Israelites, "What are you doing there lined up for battle? I am a Philistine, you slaves of Saul. Choose one of your men to fight me. If he wins and kills me, we will be your slaves. But if I win and kill him, you will be our slaves. Here and now I challenge you, the Israelite army. I dare you to pick someone to fight me." And when Saul and his men heard this, they were terrified. So here we have the Philistines with a sort of secret weapon. They've got this massive guy that comes out every day and challenges the Israelite army. This guy was huge. If he came to your house, he would have to sort of bend down to get through the front door. And I'm sure he would keep hitting his head with the lights and things. He really was a massive guy. And he probably looked even more worrying when he was dressed up in all of his armour with his weapons and things. So the two armies find themselves in this sort of standoff. It then says later on in verse 16 that Goliath challenged the Israelite armies every morning and every evening for 40 days. So this situation, it just went on and on. So this is where our man David comes in. Okay, so David's dad said to David, he said to David, "Take 10 kilograms of roasted grains and 10 loaves of bread and hurry with them to your brothers in the camp. Find out how your brothers are getting on and bring back something to show that you have seen them and that they are well." So David wasn't at the battle because he was the youngest of the brothers and he was a shepherd. He was looking after the sheep. So when he gets to watch the battle, when he gets to where the battle's taking place, he sees Goliath coming out every day and making this challenge. But when he meets up with his brothers aren't particularly happy to see him. So David's older brother says to him, he says he was angry with David and said, "What are you doing here? Who's taking care of these sheep of yours out there in the wilderness? You cheeky brat, you just came to watch the fighting." So his brothers aren't particularly kind to David. They just think that he's come to have a wee nosy. But David looks at Goliath and says, "Look, I'm happy to go and fight this guy." So word gets around eventually to the king, and the king wants to have a meeting with David. So David goes to see the king, and David says to the king, "Your Majesty, no one should be afraid of this Philistine. I'll go and fight him." And the king sort of looks at him and says, "But look, you're just a shepherd boy. How on earth are you going to take on this guy? He's a trained soldier." So David says to him, "Look," he says, "I've killed lions and bears, and I'll do the same to this Philistine." He says, "The Lord has saved me from lions and bears, and he will save me from Goliath." So the king sort of says, "Well, if you want to go and do this, then that's fine. But look, before you go, you really need to be kitted out properly." So he goes to his cupboards and he gets David all sorts of bits of equipment. So he puts a helmet on him, and he puts some armour on him, and he gives him a sword and a spear and a shield, and he dresses up David so that he's ready for battle with Goliath. But David just can't move in this armour. It's so heavy and it's not his that he just can't wear it. He can't move, he can't fight in it. So he takes it all off, and what it then says is, he took his shepherd's stick and he picked 5 smooth stones from the stream and he put them in his bag. And with his catapult ready, he went out to meet Goliath. So here we have David, no armour, just a catapult and some stones and his shepherd's stick. So of course he walks out into the middle of the valley when Goliath comes out to challenge, and what do you think happens? Of course Goliath just laughs at him. He just sees this little boy standing in front of him. He says to him, "What's the stick for? Do you think I'm a dog?" And he says to David, "Come on then, I will give your body to the birds and the animals to eat." So David, rather than being intimidated and running away, says back to Goliath, he says, "You're coming against me with a sword and a spear, but I come against you in the name of the Lord Almighty, the God of the Israelite army which you have challenged. I will defeat you and cut off your head." So again, Goliath just laughs at him. But then what happens is, as Goliath starts to move forward to David, David takes out his catapult and he takes out a stone and he fires a stone and hits Goliath in the head, smashing his skull, and Goliath falls over. So David rushes forward and he takes out Goliath's swords and he cuts off his head. And then what do you think happened? Well, of course, with no hero in front of them, the Philistines saw that Goliath was dead, and it says in the Bible that they ran away. So there you go. That's how David managed to take down this massive man Goliath, just with a catapult and a stone. And it goes on to then say that Saul kept David with him from that day. It said that David was successful in all the missions which Saul sent him on, and he made him an officer in his army. And this made all of the king's officers and men very happy. So David went on to feature in an awful lot more Bible stories, and he's actually one of the most important people in the Old Testament. But his life wasn't perfect. David's life, like all of our lives, was full of ups and downs. But what it does show in this story, and what the story reminds us of, is that whatever situation that we find ourselves in, then God has said that He will be with us. He'll stand by our side, and He'll remind us all the time of the promises that He's made to us. So there you go, that's our story for today. I hope you enjoyed that. I hope you enjoyed the challenges and the little craft game that we made as well. And we hope to probably do some more of these Messy Church videos as long as this lockdown continues. So in the meantime, please, everybody here at Messy Church hopes that you stay well, that you look after yourself, you're looking after the people around about you, and that everything is okay with you. So until the next time, we see you then. Stay safe. Bye just now.